Following the US-led invasion of Iraq, there were many members of Saddam Hussein's government who were hunted to be seized by the US Army. The hunt was on for Saddam the dictator, but also some of the most wanted included members of his family, including his sons, Uday and Qusay. Much notoriety was known about the brutality of these two sons, but they would be killed during a raid upon a compound in the city of Mosul on the 22nd of July 2003. Qusay Hussein was appointed heir to his father's dictatorship and kingdom, and he took a much lower profile compared to his torturous and barbarous brother. But what happened with his death, and what happened in the moments after he was slaughtered in the fighting with the American forces? To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Qusay Saddam Hussein al-Niziri al-Tikriti was born on the 17th of May 1966 inside of Baghdad. His father Saddam Hussein was at the time a revolutionary, and his mother was Saddam's wife and also Saddam's cousin. In his early life, Qusay was said to have been a family man and someone who was training to be a lawyer. He was married and did have 4 children. However, as his father rose to power and prominence inside of Iraq, Qusay began to get involved in government affairs, and he was given significant power over security groups and organisations. Qusay was involved in crushing Shia uprisings following the 1991 Gulf War, and he was, it's believed, the mastermind behind the destruction of the southern marshes inside of Iraq. These marshes were ruined, and it ended centuries of employment and a way of life. People lived in the wetlands, and the government ruined the habitat also for many animals. The plan was for the government to use the land as farmland. However, it was completely destroyed in retribution for the uprising. Qusay, it was believed, was also involved in plans to hide and conceal chemical weapons and the production of them inside of Iraq, and even when inspectors visited the country, he managed to not have the facilities discovered. But he was a lot more low profile than his brother Uday, who loved the spotlight, and Uday was known for being an outright murderer, womanizer and torturer, but Qusay kept a lower profile. He was not as unpredictable as his brother, but this didn't mean that he was free from crime. He was responsible, it's believed, for the executions of many political activists and dissidents to Saddam's regime. He ordered the killing of an engineer who it was believed was planning to leave Iraq, but then opposition groups accused Qusay of ordering the execution of thousands more political prisoners in an attempt to make more room inside Saddam's overcrowded jails. So they were executing prisoners so they could then lock more people up. Qusay served inside of the Iraqi Republican Guard, and he was involved in many military decisions, and he was also the head of the special security organisation, the security force that would conduct terror upon the population, torturing and executing many people. Anyone who showed any form of resistance to Saddam was subjected to rough treatment. Others later claimed that Qusay knew nothing about the command of the military, and that he only understood simple military things like a civilian, and that information was prepared and advised for him, and he'd either accept it or not. But as things turned inside of Iraq, and the Americans launched their invasion on the nation, Qusay Hussein knew that he would be a wanted man, and he knew that he would be hunted alongside his father. Because of this, he withdrew around $1 billion from Baghdad's central bank after his father told him to, making off with huge amounts of money, including US dollar bills. The American forces were then given a set of playing cards with the most wanted Iraqi members of government on, and this included Qusay, who was the ace of clubs, and was one of the 3 most wanted after Saddam Hussein and his brother Uday. But Saddam's closest personal secretary fell into the hands of the US forces very quickly. Ahmed Hamid Mahmoud told his interrogators that Saddam's sons had attempted to cross into Syria, but they then went back. The man who tried to take them across the border later claimed that they sought refuge with some of their acquaintances near to the Rabia border centre, and they already reached the outskirts of the city of Aleppo, and there, after replacing the broken tyres of their car, the Syrian authorities who ordered their return to Iraq stopped them. So the US forces knew that they were inside of Iraq. Qusay knew the net was closing in on him, and he knew that he would struggle to get out. He and his brother took up refuge in a villa in Mosul, and Qusay was allegedly awaiting the instruction of his father Saddam, who was also deep in hiding. He was joined, as mentioned, by his brother Uday, and they played computer games for weeks before their capture. But Qusay's son was killed, and members of the Hussein family were now being locked up. In the afternoon of the 22nd of July 2003, soldiers of the US 101st Airborne, Free 327th Infantry HQ and C Company, helped by US Special Forces, launched an attack upon a villa and compound where the Hussein brothers were holed up. A team of 8 US Special Forces soldiers knocked on the door to begin with, of the house, and no one answered, and the soldiers then breached the door and entered. The team came under intense fire from the defenders of the house, who were barricaded on the second floor. A huge gun battle ensued, and 3 US soldiers were wounded. The Americans tried to withdraw, and the occupants of the house started shooting from the windows, and they wounded another soldier. These men were then evacuated, but following the withdrawal, the soldiers from the 101st Airborne surrounded the villa and shot grenade launchers and anti-tank weapons at it, as well as machine guns. A huge firefight took place with reinforcements then brought in. But then helicopters opened up on the house, and they destroyed a large part of the building. The US forces continued to be fired upon by those inside of the house, who also threw grenades from the roof. 3 hours later, missiles were shot at the house, which reduced the house to rubble. Then the American forces entered the ruins to search for survivors, and found the dead bodies of Uday and Qusay Hussein. Qusay's 14-year-old son was also found, and he shot his AK-47 at the Americans, and was then subsequently shot dead. The body of Qusay Hussein was taken out following the raid, and it was then flown to Baghdad, where it was successfully identified. His body had to be reconstructed due to the state it was in, and through DNA and dental records he was positively identified. The corpses were photographed, and these images were then shown on television, and were even printed in newspapers. Saddam Hussein, from hiding, released a statement and claimed that, I quote, "We thank God for honouring us with their martyrdom for his sake. Beloved Iraqis, your sons and brothers, Uday, Qusay and Qusay's son Mustafa, practiced an act of faith in the arena of jihad in Mosul, after a valiant battle with the enemy, lasting a full 6 hours. The armies of aggression, equipped with all kinds of weapons of land forces, could not reach them until aircraft were used to bomb the house in which they were present. Once more I tell our faithful people that our glorious nation, that we sacrifice lives and money for the sake of God, Iraq and our nation. If Saddam Hussein had 100 sons other than Uday and Qusay, Saddam Hussein would have offered them on the same path of martyrdom. Qusay and his son were buried alongside each other, and his brother Uday, in a cemetery in Tikrit. Qusay Hussein was the heir to Saddam Hussein's dictatorship, and he was someone who was very much in the shadows compared to his brother Uday. He was a war criminal who ordered executions and was known for being a commander of the armed forces. Saddam had prepared him to step in later and continue the Hussein dynasty over Iraq, but his life would come to an end inside of a safe house, which was reduced to virtually nothing in a firefight which led to the deaths of both of Saddam's sons. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.